Don't mind me. I'm just having an out-of-body experience after talking to an absolute icon. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Kate Mayeski. I am still coming down from the adrenaline rush, the pure joy and excitement after speaking to our guest. It's the one, the only, the wonderful, the magnanimous Soulaima Gourani. Soulaima's so many things. A tech founder, a global thought leader, and one of the most compelling public speakers I've ever had the honor of interviewing. She's a wife, a mama, and that's only some of the hats that she wears every single day. You may know her from the World Economic Forum. I personally know her from the 2025 Phoenix Global Forum. You might also know her from one of her best-selling books, Nail Your Public Speech, or her trailblazing work with her company, Happio. That's HAPPIOH.com. But let me tell you, what we get into, this conversation goes way beyond her resume. We talk about the long game of life, how you survive it, how you find your voice, and how you decide boldly to build your own damn table instead of waiting for a seat at someone else's. We touch on everything from the value of AI to the power of scrubbing toilets, building a startup in Silicon Valley, to being seen, truly seen, for the very first time in your life. Soulaima doesn't hold back. She shares stories that are raw, lessons that are hard-earned, and in my case, insights that could easily change the trajectory of how you move through the world. Now, one other thing. There's a part at the end of the episode that I thought about leaving out and keeping just for me, but I kept it in because it's not just a beautiful moment, it's a great lesson in what happens when you're generous and bring more value than you take. Soulaima gives me some advice that I'll never forget. And what I want to pass on is this. Always give more than you take in this world. And when you finally have an ask for someone else, in this case, a mentor, don't be afraid to ask because their answer might surprise you. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Soulaima. I would love to start with a section from your book, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
I need you to know I'm going to geek out through this entire conversation. Very fangirl status. And I just need you to be okay with that.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, perfect. So, I dropped out in 7th grade, and I don't have a great deal of traditional education. Don't get me wrong, I've received awards and attended executive programs at Ivy League schools, but deep down, I still feel like the girl who grew up in foster care, the one who faced poverty and homelessness. English is my third language, and my words are plain. By most standards, I have every reason not to jump on a stage. But the truth is, I'm relatable to so many because my life has been a journey through trauma, challenges, and endless hurdles. Soulaima,
Right. Yeah, that's
how does it feel hearing someone else read those words back to you?
very powerful because when I wrote them, I wasn't even thinking about it, right? Because I'm so used to that's my story. But I can hear when you read them back to me that that's a great story, right? That's a great, yeah, that's wow. Um, Listen, Kate, I take 1 minute at a time in my life. I have like long perspectives and goals and whatnot. Um, but I am extremely proud that I'm sitting in Palo Alto in California with my husband, with whom I've been together with for 29 years. I have two very, very well functioning kids that are totally normal. Like, and by that I mean like they have had a totally normal upbringing. And I didn't mess that up, my marriage nor my parenthood. And I think that's for me is like winning the grand finale of something. Um, yeah, I didn't mess up my life. I think that's pretty awesome, in fact, because when I was 14, maybe 15, younger than that, I think, I heard my uncle tell my dad, let's just hope that she doesn't get pregnant before she's 16. You know, that was kind of what they hoped. If I could accomplish not become a teenage mom, that would be winning, you know? That would be winning.
I will interrupt you briefly because, oddly enough, my family had the same hopes for me
There's
growing up
nothing
in
wrong by
Baltimore.
being Yeah, but there's nothing wrong by becoming a mom at 16 if that's what you want. In fact, one of my best girlfriends, she has like m- I don't know if she has millions of followers on social media, but it's definitely up there. And she works, in social media, and she's a marketing guru. She became a mom when she was 16, right? I mean, so there you go. It doesn't have to be the end of the world, but in my family standards, that would be the end of the world. And the best thing about being underrated and underappreciated and all those things is that every time I do something that succeeds, people are like, "Wow," because they had no expectations. So yeah, yeah.
Surprise and delay. So, for those who aren't familiar with your TED Talk out of Copenhagen, could you give us a brief nutshell version? Because for me, I know you from the Phoenix Global Forum, but then of course I went down a rabbit hole and watched everything I could. And that TED Talk was just beautiful. I mean, I know you know, but anything you could share for people who aren't familiar with you would be wonderful.
Thank you, Kate. Well, that TED Talk, I'm actually not very proud of it. And I'll tell you why. Um, when I gave my TED Talk, I don't even remember what year that was. Maybe it was 14 or 15. I'm not sure. 12. No, you know what? I'm not even sure. I have to look it up. But at that time, I was almost a full-time speaker. I had just become the best keynote speaker in Scandinavia. I could easily do 100 or 200 talks a year. That's a lot. That's a lot. Sometimes I could do 4 talks in a day, okay? In 4 different like I hired a driver, a burned out taxi driver. I hired him and he drove me 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. I just, drove around and I spoke almost full time besides of being on boards. And then someone said, would you come and do this TEDx talk? And I said, yeah, of course. And at this time, there was so much expectations for me as a speaker because I was considered one of the best speakers of that time. But I was going to deliver a speech that I had never delivered before. It was my story, actually, how I grew up, and that I, at a very young age, had no purpose in life and even considered ending my life because, long story short, I really had a super traumatic childhood and youth. And and I had this one teacher that saw something in me. And at that time I was 16. And that's pretty much the only adult that I remember that actually saw just a tiny bit of talent in me. One person. And his name is Ebbe. He was my teacher in Denmark. And my TED talk was basically that everyone can be someone's Ebbe, right? Because we often think that for a human to succeed, you need like a safe childhood, a warm meal every day, a bed you can sleep in, someone to help you with your homework, a great school, tutoring, friends, and all those sort of things. And yes, that would be really nice to have. But the fact is, most children in the world does not even come remotely close to having such a childhood. If you live like where I live here in Palo Alto, most parents probably think that most kids grow up with a mom and a dad and a house, a roof over their head, and whatever. But fact is, most kids don't. So what we might think is normal is actually not that normal. It's normal to have only one parent and be some kind of a dysfunctional family in a dysfunctional family relation. And most kids goes to really horrible schools, if schools at all. Most kids actually don't get a good meal healthy meal every day. And I could go on and on. So children and upbringings are not something that we can take for granted, and it's definitely not um, equally distributed around the world. Anyway, but my point is with my TED talk was that we often think that the system should do more, the government should do more, the politicians should do more, the child welfare system should do more, or whatever. We kind of always try to place that responsibility outside of ourselves. But in fact, just by walking down the street now, going to your grocery store, if you live whatever, you might see one child that is struggling, right? Sitting outside Starbucks trying to connect to the internet or whatever. It only takes one adult to see that child to make a big difference, right? And he saw me in school and pulled me aside and gave me some really encouraging words. And that changed my life because he was an authority to me. He was a teacher, right? So he knew. I mean, he must have known, right? I thought, and that's why I believed him. But in fact, my best friend, at that time, her parents also put an extra bed in her room so that I could just come and go as I liked, right? And they would wash my clothes, and I came every morning for breakfast, never any questions asked. Does it make sense? And when I think back at them as parents, I mean, imagine one of my kids had a friend like me that would come and go and sleep and come with dirty clothes and not have a lunch bag and get one every morning. I'm pretty sure I would be messed in my head around that, right? What is going on? But these parents just knew that if we can just provide her with that love and safety, then we've done something, right? And I met this family again a few years ago, and it was just so delightful. And they follow me on social media, and they're like my biggest fans and whatnot. And I actually have quite a few of families like that. I have one in Norway. I have my foster parents, of course, in Denmark too. So I've been lucky enough that 3, 4, 5 families throughout my youth have had that relationship with me. So, yes, I ended up doing fine because someone took a little extra step and took me under their wing. I'm not saying that they paid for me or gave me expensive vacations or an iPhone or whatever, that's not at all. But just like prepare a meal, help with a little bit of homework. I had many people throughout my youth that somehow helped me with my homework and just helped me pass exams and stuff and fill out stuff, that I didn't know how to apply for things, and helped me with scholarships that changed my life. And these people, some of them I don't know the names of them, but they just kind of showed up in my life at the exact right time, and they kind of nudged me through. Um, and the beautiful thing is that I've grown up to actually trust strangers. I don't mistrust strangers. That's interesting. I trust strangers because they help me a lot. And fast forward, those skills that I learned to survive my life is actually the same skills that I'm now using in my business. Connect quickly with people, also known as networking. uh, Learn how to build trust, learn to ask for what you need. Um, yeah, build that support network around yourself, I guess. So what was really useful in the streets are also very useful in a startup for that matter.
I think you're right. When we talk about some of the issues plaguing our society, we often look outwards for a solution where we could really just be part of the solution ourselves. And I wish more people could make that connection.
Yeah, and I think I understand why you would like others, especially the system, if you pay taxes and you think like the authorities should take care of all the children that are not having what they need. And of course, you don't want your child to hang around a child that is not doing really well because, that's human nature. Um, but I've seen the transformation in so many children when they get a little bit of support. I have been on the board or engaged with, oh my God, 20 NGOs that is helping kids. Everything from building foster homes in India to awarding the best teachers every year in the world with a $1 million prize. I mean, I've done, like, I'm part of the jury. I'm not actually giving the $1 million, but I'm part of the jury. So the full spectrum of helping kids has then been something that I really care a great deal about, and I'm throwing in a lot of my time to do so. But I just feel it's important to remember that most kids does not have anything. Like they have barely any. They have barely what they need to get through the day. And I just got back from the biggest refugee camp in the world, Kakuma in Kenya. I mean, I've seen street children, of course, in India, Myanmar, Mongolia, Kenya. I mean, everywhere, right? I travel a lot, and there's so much that can be done. And after now have lived 8 years in US, I think US is doing a great job. Like, there's a lot of support system for kids. I'm amazed with all the help kids can get in the school system. I mean, I've only lived in Texas and California, so I don't know what other states are like. And my kids go to public schools, so just very average schools. But I do think a lot is being done, and everyone wants to do more for kids. But I just think we should also remember ourselves. What have I done for the kids in my class school or my church area or whatever? Whatever you do, whatever you are engaged with. Like, I think if you have a little bit of extra, you should definitely pay attention to those who have very little. And it benefits all of us if the next generation is taken well care of.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important point, especially for people like myself. I don't have kids. I'll never have kids, but I care deeply about the future of the ones that exist.
Yes.
And actually, this is a great pivot because you're a tech founder. You have your company. Is it pronounced Happio?
Happio. Yeah, Happio.
Happio.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So I imagine with everything happening with technology and AI, you have some ideas about how those technologies can help solve some of these problems. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that.
Mhm. Well, technology is like with anything else. It can be used for good and bad, right? It's both. That's with everything, right? Fire, great, bad. It's no difference. But I do think what's good about it. Let's focus on what's good about it. As someone um like myself that is not very well educated, not traditionally, and me constantly trying to communicate in a different language than my own. I'm not very good at math. I had my last math class in fourth grade. um I mean, I've been taking math classes, trying to do it like over the years, and I finished my MBA, I should say. um so I have had finance, and I do very well in budget calls and all that call. It's not like, but math like school math, not had that since fourth grade. Technology is really helpful because I can get AI to summarize complicated stuff, and I can ask it to water it down, dumb it down, whatever you like, right? Whatever you want to call it, so that I can understand whatever I need to understand. I can upload things that doesn't make sense because I don't understand the full picture or I haven't learned it, and it explains to me what's actually the point here. It helps me prepare for critical meetings where I need to come prepared, and I need that deep dive that my ADHD might not be able to give me. So it's almost like a full-time 24/7 tutor that helps me succeed in at work and in my private life. It helps me, um even helps me strategize sometimes if I'm in. It's a great tool for listen, if you grow up in a family where both of your parents are academic and they've had a corporate career and they've been through things and they know how to be a diplomat and they know how to play the political game. I know many people like me that hurt themselves get hurt in the political system, like just workplace politics, right? Have no clue what's happening, and we hit our head in the wall because we never got the playbook, kind of, right? Because you might be the first one in your family that either gets a corporate job or start a startup or whatever. There's a language for whatever you choose in life. There's a language that kinds of gets inherited from your parents or grandparents or whatever they've done. And if you have not received that playbook or not learned it, then you can only learn by going and doing. And AI can be a great tool to help you be the critical thinker. Like, I'm thinking of doing this, and this is my strategy. Why shouldn't I do it? And then you can start having opposite opinions. Or so I think it's just a great tool for thinking, for strategizing, for solving, for summarizing, for calculating, for everything. Of course, you shouldn't just trust it blindly, and you need to use many different tools so that you don't only use one tool that has one set of biases or whatever built in. So you have to be creative in that time. But I think AI is a great tool. On the other hand, it's also a little scary because a lot of people will lose their job or get their jobs reduced. So what is being created now is like a new collar jobs. It's not blue collar, not white collar, but new collar jobs. And that means that everything is up for translation at this moment. Like, we do not know who is going to succeed, quote unquote, because it will be the one that is curious. It will be the one that is mental hungry and creative and can learn on the go. And that's why I think people like me will always survive, because we don't need much. And if you strip everything away, we will still be very strong. And I think so. Maybe the future belongs to the hustlers, the former street children, the the ADHDs. I don't know. Um,
Take
but
it
yeah,
over.
taking over. I don't know about that, but I think I'm definitely you have to be adaptable, right? And flexible. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I I'm hearing advice between the lines, but I do want to ask you directly because I have several people in my life from all walks of life, all ages, that are really resistant to new technology. They're resistant to change.
sure.
They have no desire to learn AI. But what you just said and what I believe is that we have to have a growth mindset. We have to embrace change. So, what advice do you have either directly to those individuals who have put their hand up and said, I have no interest, or advice for someone like me who's trying to lend a hand and bring them along? How do we get them on board?
Well, you definitely cannot allow yourself to say that's not for me, and I don't believe it's going to impact me in my lifetime. Like, AI is tremendous. Look, just within the last 2 years, right? It has been incredible. What have happened? I mean, AI and large language models, it's not a new thing. It's been around for 30, 40 years. So it's not a new thing, but suddenly everyone now has an interface they can relate to through, for instance, ChatGPT and other stuff. And now it has become relatable and affordable, and you can use it in your everyday life. But fact is, we've been using AI for a long time. I mean, Facebook, right? The thumbs up and thumbs down and all that. That's totally AI. Well, advice, I think, be curious. We ask our children, have you used AI today? Yeah, if you have, for what? We kind of encourage them to use AI for everything. And do you need premium subscription for anything? Just let us know. Um, and we're so proud when they use AI, right? Like, yay, good to go. And then, and then at night, instead of always watching a movie, when you have to relax, go on YouTube and just, there's so many tutorials out there and great communicators, AI avatars even, that is communicating AI of the day or AI of the week. And make yourself a cup of tea and just just immerse yourself into this brave new world. and use AI. It's very easy and very, very easy to build workflows for your own life, right? It I mean, you don't have to buy software. You can actually, everyone nowadays can actually create a workflow around, for instance, something simple. I love anything that has to do with bananas, right? And then you can just create a workflow that gives you a banana tip of the day or whatever, from all over the world, right? Or if you like makeup or fashion or nutrition, or if you have some kind of food allergy, like you can build agents that can kind of curate and give you all you need to know about whatever happens in the world exactly in that field, almost like a Google alert, but just slightly more complicated. You can create news for yourself so you don't get certain news. And there's just so much you can do. Why don't you start using AI for oh, let me give you an example. Actually, this is a fun example to understand the power of AI. There's something called Notebook LLM. I think a lot of people know it, but it's really a tool that's free to use, and it creates a podcast between two hosts. And you just upload something, and it will create a podcast around the theme. And it's a great way to, if you need to discuss anything tomorrow at work, you just upload a document, and those two hosts will make it an engaging read, audio wise, right? So you don't have to read it, but they will kind of discuss it for you. And Notebook LM is really a wonderful tool if you need to understand something complex, and you can ask it exactly. You can prompt it to exactly deliver the message in a way that you can understand it. Like, anyway, a friend of mine, she's a super AI nerd, and she did an experiment. You're gonna love this, Kate, because it's so brilliant. What is it called when you get your credit card report, right? Every month, if you have a credit card or what, yeah, you can see what you spent money
The
on, like
score. Oh, sure.
not the score, no, the whole payout, like the
The statement.
statement, exactly, the bank statement. Yeah, exactly. She uploaded her bank statements for the last 3 years up to Notebook LLM, and then she said to Notebook, because that is boring, right? And then she said to Notebook LLM, create a podcast where the hosts are discussing this person, and I want them to dive into what kind of person she is. And within 30, 40 seconds, a podcast came out, and they discussed, oh, this woman really likes to travel. She likes fine dining. Not only fine dining, she hosts a lot. And look what she bought, and then they just started discussing. And she said she saw herself in a completely new light.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can take anything and just upload it. Be cautious, right? When you upload things, just don't take things that are too confidential. Um, the reason why I'm saying this is because then maybe if you upload something as boring as that, you will understand the power of AI and what it can do, and what it can do for you as a tool in your everyday life. I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of calories just staying on top of things and remember stuff and read stuff and whatever. And AI can help you. Of course, you shouldn't outsource your thinking. That's not what I'm saying. But you should have it as everyone has an executive assistant nowadays, really. Everyone has one.
Yeah, you highlighted a point I wanted to ask you about
Mm, mm,
was how do you personally strike the balance between staying up to date on all these things,
mm,
technology, and then in your book too, you reference staying up on Google Trends and leveraging social media,
mm,
digital, digital, digital.
mm,
How do you stay human? How do you not just live on your phone and your
mm,
laptop, but
mm,
also stay up to date and dialed into everything?
mm. Well, I think that's our biggest challenge nowadays. That is how to stay human. And with that, I mean, not looking at our screens. I'm glad I found my husband before iPhone, right? Because I was actually looking up, right? I was actually looking around, and then I saw him, right? Dating is harder because you don't look up, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays. Um, well, I do quite a lot of, sport, nature, good old conversations with people, meaning socializing, because that's a skill eventually. being with people, having complicated relationships, the stuff you have to figure out, hard conversations. That's a muscle too, right? I make sure that every time I'm very comfortable and when everything goes really, really well, that's when I conduct a change in my life all the time. It is always every 10 years, I just move state, country, whatever, change jobs, starts new businesses. I never rest as such, because I've seen what happens to people when they stop creating and stop being curious and playful. Um, I'm sure if I had not done all those changes in my life, I would probably have, a vacation home, maybe even two, more real estate, maybe a boat. I would have a very good pension account, pension, um, all sorts of things. But in the end, those things don't matter. I want to live a life that has been well lived, and I believe it's the purpose of a human is to live and create, and that's playfulness. Since I was 20, I think I kind of came up with that strategy. Sometimes it has been more than 3 weeks, even up to 3 months a year. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. While you're doing something, while you have a career or a job or whatever, you have to prepare right now for where you want to be 7 to 10 years from now, right? You have to start now. Cannot wait. And when you need the change, that's usually not a great time because you don't have the resource, you don't have the time, you might not have the energy or money or relationships, right? Or skills. So you have to understand. I mean, life happens, right? And sometimes it goes in a complete other direction. Be prepared for that too. But to some extent, you kind of know where you want to go, right? Um, uh, for instance, I keep meeting people that wants to move to Europe. I don't know why. Like, oh, I would love to go to Europe. Um, maybe it's the current administration. I don't know, but people sort of think that life is easy in Europe at this moment. But anyway, and when people say, "Oh, I want to move to Europe," then I'm like, "Oh, interesting. And how will you make that happen?" And they're like, "Yeah, in 3 years when the kid's out of college, I might move to Spain." I'm like, "That's a great idea. How are you going to make that happen? What is the step that you're going to do today that will make it possible for you in 3 years to move to Spain? Because otherwise, it's just a dream. That's not a plan, right?" And there's incredible what you can do if you take a little step every day, maybe invest $1 a day in your dream. Then 3 years from now, you will be in Spain, right? That $1 can be a membership for a Spanish, whatever community dance, whatever, whatever, whatever. Or a $5 subscription for a whatever, you know what I mean? Is so little. I don't know why we think that every time we need to do something, we have to take a new master degree or we have to like get a house and move somewhere. It's so ridiculous because then you will never do it. So you kind of have to think about where you want to go. And then you have to start thinking, how soon do I want to realize my dream? If you don't have much time, then you need more time, more energy, more relationships, more funding. But if you have a good time perspective, let's say 7 to 10 years, you can do a lot, right? And if you think about it, most of us have four decades, maybe even 5 decades of dramatically change in our life from 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70. Like, honestly, 10 good years in each place, wonderful life. So I think it's not for everyone. But when I look at the statistics and see how many people that at some point in their life feel resentful and regret what they have done, who they spent time with, what they worked on, who they worked with, and really how they've spent their time, the precious life they have. And then I think about a lot of these people have more fear of what could happen than desire of what could happen. So fear trumps desire. Um, and but I'm hardwired and super biased, and I should always alert people and warn them that I will always talk in favor of moving physically around in the world. and spend time with people that are dramatically different than yourself. That's the only way to build that resilient muscle and learn how to see one problem have many, many different solutions. It's not only black or white, there's many solutions to each problem that we face. And that feeds back as a creative muscle that you can use in any parts of your life. But of course, to be that person, you need to be grounded in yourself, right? So you have to do that self work. And that's probably the work that most people, not most, but a lot of people really don't know how to get started. Um, and that could be,
What would
mhm,
I was gonna ask, how would you recommend people get started? I know you
mm,
and I spoke a little bit about
mm,
mental hygiene and
yeah,
some upcoming projects you have.
mm,
I'd be very curious to know because I think there are a lot of experts around this conversation out there,
mm,
and I hope everyone has the best of intent. But I think you are someone that has a very unique perspective on
mm,
how to design a life that,
mm,
yes, includes struggle and the unknown, but you've built a life with intent and positivity. And I'm sure everyone's curious how to do that.
mm. Well, I'm not positive every day, in fact, at all, right? But it's an everyday investment. So you cannot wake up every morning thinking you wish things to be dramatically different, right? You can, but that's misery. You have a life right now. You might not live where you want to live. You might not have those relationships that you think you deserve, or you might not have that job that you deserve, so whatever. And there's many you might not have a body that you appreciate. Like it could be all sorts of things, right, that we don't appreciate. But you gotta start with, this is my body, this is how I look, and I'm gonna appreciate you. Thank you for carrying me through life, or thank you for waking up every morning alive. There's always something to be thankful for. And I do think that once you start becoming more thankful for the small things, better things happens, right? On the larger scale. And mental hygiene, hell on earth must be in our heads, I find. Really take a closer look to what is going on in your head, because what is reality, right? I often, if I have maybe a disagreement with someone, or someone is not reaching out to me for months, or things are not moving, I immediately think, oh, it's probably because of me. We have something going here. Maybe we have a beef. And then 2 weeks later, the person comes out and tells me a whole other reason why she didn't reach out, or why something didn't materialize, or whatever. It's very rarely about me. In fact, it's not about me at all. So I think, that mental hygiene, just like you take a shower, hopefully a few weeks, days, a few times a week, I would suggest, um, once a day is maybe too much to ask for a lot of people, but I do think that mental hygiene, like brushing your teeth every day, we can agree on that. That is the same you have to do with your head. And then capture yourself before you down spiral down in your depression and negativity. That's poison for your soul. I'm not saying you should walk around and be pretendingly happy. That's also not great. But you definitely should be trying to ask yourself, the glasses that I wear, are they truly and really uniquely mirroring the life that I have? And I do know how it feels like to be scrubbing toilets at nights, or being a dishwasher in a restaurant while everyone else seems to be in the restaurant having a good time, having money to pay for that meal, or having money to go out and, at that time partying, right? And while I was just working my butt off, and um, uh, kind of, feeling like, oh, life has let me down. But when I think about it in a bigger picture, I'm so, so thankful for all the hard work that I've been through, and everything I've seen. Uh, the only downside is that I'm very, very emotional, and I can relate. I can relate to people's hardships so hard. And when I see someone serving me a meal at a restaurant, or sometimes you walk in, there's a cleaning lady washing the bathrooms or whatever, I'm just so thankful to that person. Like, I see you, right? I was in Saudi Arabia not too long ago, and there was a big gala or whatever. I was invited as a speaker, so it was a big deal. And then during the dinner, I had to go to the bathroom, and n- no one was expected at the bathroom at that time because it was like a speech and whatever. But I was jet lagged, and I really needed to go to the bathroom. And I came in, and there was like six Filipino ladies doing exercises, like a little cardio in the bathroom because it was their break, right? And they were like doing almost like aerobics. And I came in and I'm like, wow, you guys are so fit. And they laughed and they laughed and they just did a circle around me, all those Filipino ladies, and just clapped at me and like looked at me with the biggest appreciation. And they thought I was so beautiful and whatnot. And we had a moment, me and those cleaning ladies, right? Because I saw them. Make sense? And I don't feel any better. Uh, don't look up, don't look down on it, and don't look up to anyone, and don't look down on anyone. I think that's a good advice, because in a second you can be down cleaning toilets again, you know. So that makes me kind of humble, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar mindset, and I think I talk a lot about how strength is the product of struggle. So many people have had a similar quote around that concept. I think that if you've been in a position of service, like cleaning the toilets or any version of that, you can uniquely see and understand other people's stories. And even being at the convention center at the Phoenix Global Forum, it's just habit for me. The women who were cleaning the restrooms for us, the people that were serving drinks at the
Yeah,
open bar, I
exactly.
always make it a point to connect and show my appreciation
Me too. Mm.
because everyone deserves to be seen and appreciated. And I think sometimes service people just get looked over. Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about those jobs for a second. The hospitality industry is a
Please.
great industry to learn what you need to know about being great in business. It's a great launching pad because you have to deal with really difficult people, right? And you learn to work hard. Most people can work hard, don't worry, but you know, you definitely learn that. And you almost get a master in psychology from observing,
100%.
right? I've been a bartender, I've been serving breakfast and whatnot, and you know, I at some point I worked full time as a server, right? And I think those skills you learn to charm yourself out of issues. You know how to get more tips. You know, you do all those sort of things. Um, in fact, I was working 6, 7 months as a server full time, and the tips from those months paid my education when I came back to my to Denmark. You know, all the tips that yeah. So tips are important, right? You have to remember that. So I think that it's a good starting point, and everyone should take a few months uh, and work in the hospitality industry. It's healthy, uh, and you learn so much. I mean, I think there's a few. I'm not for the military, by the way, and I haven't done military service myself, but I do think military and um, hospitality jobs, and maybe work as a assisting teacher or in a preschool or whatever. These kind of jobs, you know, everyone should have a few months there. I think that would be helpful.
I completely agree. I mean, I was, I suppose, lucky enough to have the perspective of the service industry from the time I was 13 years old. And again, a little bit during COVID, which was a completely different experience. Uh, but yeah, you learn how to manage any type of emergency, any type of personality. And I think that's so important. And I hope that the younger generation that's coming up, teenagers and people in college in their 20s, I hope that they get beyond the monetization of TikTok and social media and go actually work with people because I would hire someone that can manage
Hmm.
a 10 top and some 4 tops before I would hire someone that can edit a podcast.
100%. I mean, I think I don't know how McDonald's is doing branding wise, but I think from what I know from McDonald's, for instance, as an example, they're still very highly regarded. If you have worked a few years at a McDonald's, right, you get a good education, and that's a good platform for a corporate job later if you want to do that. Um, so, but I'm not too focused on formal education, right? I think in Phoenix, I think I also said something along the lines that I'm not completely sold on the idea of college. I'm not completely sold on it. I think it needs to be shortened, less expensive, and more hands-on, and it should be illegal to even let children take an education where they cannot guarantee a job in some way or another. I'm not saying just hand them a job, right? That's not what I'm saying, but that should be a relatively logical return on investment that can prove that you can get a job with these things. Otherwise, close them down right away. Um, because you take all those young people and you and actually end up putting them in a financial prison, right? With hundreds of thousands of debt, and then you get off school and then you can't get a job, and then you have maybe you want a boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse and a kid and a car, and then there you go. The next 40 years you're
Yeah,
just
for
stuck
life.
for life. And that's not nice. That's not great, right? So I think we should just stop for a moment and hold our breath. And actually, we should breathe, but just look closely on what we are being sold. What is the reality that we're being sold? Anyway, back to my point. I think using AI tools, get to know yourself really well as soon as possible. If you're young, spend more time sitting with yourself and just get to understand yourself. Experiment, travel. Don't be afraid of taking so-called low skill, low paid jobs. Whatever they are good. You learn from that. Um, Actually, at my local grocery store here, um, there's a guy who works a few days a week, and my husband found out accidentally that this guy have done, I don't know, five. I don't know. He's an investor, and he did a huge exit with his company. Whatever. He never has to make a dime in his life, but he's standing there. And I
Mhm.
interviewed him one day and had a conversation with him, and he said, "Well, it's such a tangible job to serve people at this grocery store, right? And check them out and pack the bags. It's very satisfying," he said.
Oh, I look at the Walmart greeters and think one day that will
Yeah.
be the perfect job for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, really. I mean, by the way, if you do really well at Walmart, you can have a really good salary, like $300,000-400,000 if you become like a store manager of those. They earn really good money because recruiting is tough. But I think, yeah, I think what makes you happy is important, and I see too many who have everything on paper, like it looks so correct, and they have everything, but they are so incredibly unhappy. There's a threshold here, okay? If you have no money, it can be very hard. The world is very hard on poor people, for sure, here and everywhere else. But I it it's also hard to make money, good money, um, if you don't love what you're doing. I mean, some people can do it. Some people are plain out assholes with no heart, and they're billionaires. I get that. That's unfair, but we don't know what they're going through. But mostly just find out what is enough, what is good enough, and then go with that. Um, because we don't know how long we are on Earth. And I believe in, if you can create something where you have a lot of positive feelings every day, whether that's doing a podcast or being a dentist or being a greeter in Walmart, positive feelings, feel some kind of engagement, right? That you engage in what you do, and that you have relations, right? Like good colleagues or people you work for or with or serve. And then a lot of meaning, right? It should make sense for you why you go to work every day. And then you should feel achievement, like you feel that you're good at it and you get things done and it succeeds, right? Whatever success look like. But making a good bed as a housemate, that's hard, But I'm sure if you can really make a good one, you'll be like, yeah, I'll put my signature on that one and then go to the next room. So I think just whatever makes you happy. And when you are happy and good at what you're doing and you're enjoying what you're doing, it radiates, right? And I don't know if it's in the book you're sitting with there, but in one of my recent books, I write about a school. What do they call those who guard when the small kids walk over the
Cross guard?
cross guards? Yeah. Okay. We have one here, and we drive by a few times a week. He doesn't know, but we always stop and look at him, and we in the car we're just like, thank God he exists. His mood radiates deep inside our car. He's having such a great time. He's high-fiving everyone and he's like on it. And he is making an impact on our life without him knowing it, just by him existing. Does it make sense? So even
Absolutely.
so, who are you when no one is watching? Because someone is watching, right? But it's just incredible what impact you can have on other people's life just by being a good human being that loves what he or she is doing. I love perfectionists, those who really take an honor in doing things the best way possible, whether that's decorating a store window and do a really good job, or serving you that breakfast or whatever. If they put an effort in, I appreciate that, even no matter how small or how big it is.
I agree. I talk all the time about whether I was running the trash truck or on the line at McDonald's, whatever it is. I strive to be the best version of myself and show up the very best that I can. And I think if you have that general approach to life and that mindset, truly you will be rewarded and recognized, and good things will come to you. So bring as much value as you can and recognize that will come back to you in one way or another.
Okay, did you do a garbage job? Like, did true?
I have not done a garbage job, though I will say in, let's say, 20 plus years, I've had just as many W-2 jobs, and I've done everything from animal welfare, food industry, hypnosis center, e-commerce. I've cleaned up human and animal, all kinds of stuff. So
Okay,
yeah,
that
I've done
that
my time.
that's a book there.
I know. I know.
But it's there really is. Um, but I think yeah, I don't know. I still feel like an amateur in my life. I'm just trying to figure things out. I've never done this before. I've never been a parent with two teenagers. Every day is a new day. I've never done what I'm going to do tomorrow. I've never done that before, right? Every day I don't do anything on repetition. Every day I'm doing something that I've never done before in my entire life. And that is exciting and scary. And if I have a bad day, then I'm like, I just want to be normal. Why do I have to risk everything and put everything on red or blue or whatever? And why do I have to, why can I just, why can I not just be happy with what I have? But I just feel like learning is more important than anything else. So apparently that's my life journey. I have to take risks and do stuff, and yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful you're blazing that trail for the rest of us, because I think otherwise life could be really boring.
I don't know about that. My mom to this day, she's like, man, you need to get a real job. So I think, I don't know. And then, if things goes well, which they have many times, then people are so proud of you. And when they don't go well, they're like, yeah, you're also too ambitious. I could have told you this could never work. What is it you say in US? Success have many dads and offers.
Oh, I'll have to look that one up.
Okay, okay, okay. I'll just give you my version then. If you are successful, a lot of people will take the honor and say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was with her. I had a little bit of the honor." But if you fail, no one,
Oh, yeah.
no, no one, no one wants to be
Worth.
around. Yeah, yeah. Then no, no, I had nothing to do with that. So, it's very lonely if you do something that don't work out. Um, but you cannot live for other people's approval. That's not why you're here, right? You're here.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, you cannot do that. You just gotta. And I think maybe sit more with yourself and listen louder is also helpful, because life is constantly trying to tell you what you should do. Not your ego, but life is trying to. But then you close it down and you say, oh, but there's not enough money in this, or there's not enough status in this, and there's not enough this or that. And I know people who has zero interests, or really only cared about very few, very niche things that could never be a career, and they totally turned it into a career. Like there's this guy in Norway, right? Super introverted guy, hated being around people, absolutely only wanted to hike the mountains. And he somehow, thanks to social media, whatever, turned that whole thing into a lifestyle where he get paid of hiking the mountains himself and test run gear, right? Does it make sense? And that's such a good example of whatever, he didn't like people. He just want to be on himself in the mountains. There's not a lot of jobs for that, right? And yet he turned it into a full-time job, and he's making more than I do. So you think, it's just like, w- however, and no matter how little your passion is, there's never been better platforms to spotlight or highlight or build a community around whatever weird thing that you're obsessed with, and you can make money from that. There's someone out there, no matter how ridiculous your skills are, in the larger scheme of things, meaning what is your best skill might for someone say that it's not a skill at all, but for someone else that's a superpower skill, right? I could give you an example. My daughter, she's trying to learn to knit, right? But she's left-handed. I can't learn her that. Oh, it turns out some woman on the internet is left-hand knitting, and she has a full. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say? Yeah. So it can be small things like that. I mean, 15 years ago, there was this lady in South Korea, right? I mean, now it's random and now it's everywhere. But 15 years ago, it was kind of a big thing. She just liked to eat, right? Food. So she turned on her webcam and she made $7,000 a day just by eating in front of her webcam, right? And people tuned in South Korea and had dinner with her, right? They couldn't talk to her, but they could just see her dine. And now that's a whole industry, right? So you can turn the weirdest things into a full-time profession, but you gotta be creative and just see yourself in that light that you have something to offer. But if you don't believe in the game and you don't believe in yourself, then of course you cannot turn that into a revenue stream or whatever. But we all have something to offer, each one of us.
Yeah. Do you have something that in your mind is weird, random, or unexpected way that you've made money?
Yeah, I mean, oh gosh, weird ways of making money. I mean, I've been making money online for quite a while. I think for 15, 17 years, so that's quite a long time. I think it's weird that I can manage to get a room of people come together every week or every month, depending on what program they join. And I mentor them and I build these leadership circles. I mean, how awesome I get to sit, an hour in front of my webcam and just spend time with awesome people. And they pay me for that, right? And they are having a great time. That's really that's conversations I would pay for to be part of. And I'm being paid for being part of those. I mean, being paid to be spending time with smart people. I think that's weird. And I'm also, being paid for if I live somewhere, I usually get to know people. And if in those areas I live in, and now it's in Silicon Valley, once in a while people say, oh, can you take my leadership group? We also want to go to Silicon Valley. We want to meet him and her, or this company and this company, because our company wants to learn from this company. And then I design learning journeys. I mean, it's like a tour guide in my own city, right? How awesome is that? I get to meet people and they pay me for introducing to people that I like already. And there I am drinking coffee with two people that I love or that I think are awesome, or two companies that are then now spending time together and is creating new stuff together. And I'm being paid for that. That's so effortless, in a way, and so beautiful. That's a weird way to make money. And I would do that, again, what would you do even if you don't get paid? And yet you
Sure.
get paid. Like, that's what would you honestly do without getting paid? There's something in that. Is that eating? Well, then eating and food is maybe your thing. Maybe it's chocolate tasting or hiking in the mountains or babysitting or whatever, dog sitting, I don't know. Or it could be so many things. Jobs nowadays, there's so much creative that goes into it.
Well, if my followers all of a sudden see me just shoving cheeseburgers down my face, I'm gonna say it was your fault.
Well, you
Okay.
could do a live, a cheeseburger a day, and then we could follow your journey and your biometrics and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know.
I'll get the DEXA scan.
Yeah.
I know you've got a flight to catch. I
Yes.
just wanted to say again quickly, first and foremost, I really truly did enjoy this book, Nail Your Public Speech. Such an inspiration and the perfect balance between the art and the science, I think, of public speaking. So everyone should check that out.
Thank you, Kate.
And I just thank you, Soulaima, for giving me the time, being a mentor and such an inspiration. Anything you'd like to say to the viewers, what you have coming up, or where they can find you if they want to learn more?
Well, just go on soulaima.com, 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 my name. And then I want to say to you, Kate, you give so much of yourself, right? And you're so lively and warm, and that's something a lot of people don't know how to be. So if you should create anything online, you should teach more people to have a higher emotional intelligence, right? That's something that you are master in, and you connect really quickly with people, and you know how to be sweet and kind and smart at the same time. So I think more people need to learn human skills. So maybe there's some avenue for you there.
I can't tell you how grateful I am to just gonna ride that wave for the rest of the year. So thank you. Well, safe travels
Thank you,
and
Kate.
thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Kate.
Bye. Bye.